Okay, what we have here is we're going to be doing quadratic simultaneous equations. We're going to have a look at two examples, one where you both have y as a subject and one where you do not have y as a subject of both equations. So looking at the first one, here we can see we have got y is a subject of both equations. Now we know that when we're trying to solve simultaneous equations, we're trying to find the points where the lines cross. So this is an x squared graph. If we just draw a little sketch of our graph. So this is the graph where we're going to have it, an x squared graph crossing like this, and we're going to have this graph crossing like this, and we're going to try and find out where these graphs cross. But at that point, for both graphs, the y value is the same. And at that point, for both graphs, the y value is the same. So if the y value is the same, that means this is equal to y, and this is also equal to y. So the green bits must be the same. So we must have x squared plus x equals 3x plus 3. And we get everything onto the same side because we have a quadratic. And if you don't know how to solve quadratics, go on to a video on how to solve quadratics. Take away 3x, we get minus 2x. Take away 3, we get minus 3. And generally, in the GCSE papers, you will have factorizable quadratics. So let's have a go at factorizing it. And we've got x and x at the front. And what multiplies to give us our minus 3 and adds to give us minus 2? Well, if we do minus 3 and plus 1, that will give us our minus 2x, because minus 3 times x is minus 3x, and 1 times x is x. Add those together, you get minus 2x. So this means either this equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, or x plus 1 equals 0. Now if this equals 0, then x must equal 3, and if this equals 0, x must equal minus 1. So we found our x values. So if you look at a graph, what we've done is we found our two x values. We found the minus 1, 1, and we found the 3, 1. And we need to find our y values for this. Now the easiest equation is always the one without the squares. So if x equals 3, this will tell us that, and this means implies, y equals 3 times 3 plus 3, which is 12. So we have our pair of coordinates 3, 12. Here is where it crosses. And when x equals minus 1, this tells us that y will equal minus 3, 3 times minus 1 is minus 3, plus 3 is 0. So our y will equal 0, and our other coordinate is going to be minus 1, 0. So our two answers to this question are 3, 12 and minus 1, 0. So long as you're pairing up your answers, you can leave them like this. It doesn't always ask you for coordinate answers, but if it does ask you for coordinate answers, sorry, I'll just get my head out of the way of that answer so you can see the minus 1, 0 there. Okay, then you can actually, if it doesn't ask you, you can just leave it like this. But if it does ask you for coordinate answers, you can put the coordinate answers. What we're going to do is we're going to look at some student answers where they couldn't do this question. And here you go, you can see some answers, actually some of my previous writings on this. And we're just going to look at what causes students problems, and therefore you might be able to see where you go wrong. Okay, and now you can see down to here, this student has managed to work it out all correctly. They've done their factorization correctly, and they managed to identify their x's. Okay, and what they didn't know was they had to put in their x's in to find y. So they didn't show the working down here. They've gone and done some more strange stuff down here. They didn't show that x equals 3 here, and therefore this one gives you x equals minus 1. And that would improve their working. And again, if they'd had the part of the equation, what's this one? So it's quite hard to see what they've done here. I think they've just left... It looks like they left a 3 on this side. It's really hard to see what they were doing, but they did get to the right equation. And this student just gave up. Okay, and if you just give up and you don't try things, you don't get better at maths. They didn't try. There was a video to go with this question, not how to do this question, but how to do these type of questions. They could have looked at that. They could have just written some algebra, because as a teacher, it's really important to be able to pick up where they're struggling. Okay, now this student, again, what they've done is they've done everything correctly. They got their factorization, they found their x's, and they just couldn't quite find the y's and didn't show the working for the y's. And this one did a lot of working in the head and didn't seem to get anywhere. So you can see the ones that got it right did the most working, or at least got half the question right, did all the working on paper. And all the students who got it right showed all their working. Now going on to the next type of question. We notice we don't have y as the subject of both of these equations. So I'm just going to scroll up to give myself a little bit more space. So what we need to do is we need to realize our y value here is equal to 4x plus 1. So we can replace that y with 4x plus 1. Okay, and then we have an equation just in x, and once you get down to an equation in just in x, we can solve it. So if we replace that y with 4x plus 1, we will get x squared plus 4x plus 1 all squared, because we're putting that value in here, where that y value was. And that must equal 1. And here's where students make their first mistake. They forget that this is just the same as 4x plus 1 times 4x plus 1. And then you've got to multiply it all out. And you get, when you multiply this all out, you'll get a 16x squared. You'll get a 4x and another 4x, which will give me 8x. And then we get 1 times 1, which is just 1. And that equals 1. So we combine the x squareds to get 17x squared. We've got the 8x there, but we can take away 1 from both sides and we just get 0. The only thing we can do to factorize is, when you don't see 3 terms, don't try to do a double bracket factorization to start off with. Try and see what common factor. And you can see there's an x that goes into both of these, so we take that out. And that leaves us 17x plus 8 equals 0. The last bracket's in. So either the x equals 0, so that's a nice easy answer, or we've got 17x plus 8 equals 0. And we rearrange this and we get x equals minus 8 over 17. And then what we do is, remember we've got our x values. If you're wondering what's going on geometrically with this one's an equation of a circle where the radius is 1. So that's 1, 0, that's 0, 1, that's minus 1, 0, that's 0, 1. X squared plus y squared, this gives the square root of this gives the radius. The square root of 1 is the radius. So that's our circle, and this is the equation of the graph 4x plus 1, so it's going to go something like this. So we're going to have a crossing point here and a crossing point here. And notice that's our x equals 0, 1 is there, and we found our x equals minus 8 over 17 here. Now, if x equals 0, we can put that into this equation to find y. So 4 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, so we found our y. So y equals 1. So that, as we expected, if we remember what I said, this being a circle radius 1, for x equals 0, that's where it crosses the y-axis, so y is 1. The other value, we've got x equals minus 8 over 17. And we can put minus 8 over 17, put it into this, so you get minus 32 over 17. And if you change 1 into a fraction, that's 17 over 17. So minus 32 over 17 plus 17 over 17 will give us minus 15 over 17. If you can't do that all in your head, it's perfectly okay to do that on your calculator. So the points are, if you want to give coordinates, 0, 1, and you're going to give minus 8, 17, comma, minus 15, comma, 17. And when I go back to look at student answers that went wrong, there was a student that got all the right values. They just didn't pair them up correctly in the, sorry, not that one. That shows the correct answer. Where was it? It was this student here that worked out all the right answers, but just didn't pair them up correctly, put the 0 with the minus 15 over 27 rather than the 1. So this student managed to work them all out. And you can see a common pattern here, again, of students getting wrong answers. They got to the x's. Actually, this one couldn't spot how to factorize this to take out the common factor of x. This one got one of the x's out. They got this. No, they haven't got the x out, either of the x's out. Again, they got a +2 here from 1 times 1 is 2 for some reason. Was their mistake. That's where they went wrong. This one here didn't quite know what to do with the factorization. Actually, correctly factorized it because you've got x plus 0. So that would still give you x equals 0. And that would still give you the right answer. So they did find the x equals 0 one. They just didn't find the -8/17 one. So generally, it's at that point where they've got to solve the quadratic and the factorization. It's either being able to do that or then move on to finding y they have problems with. So make sure you can solve your quadratics, and then you'll be ready to solve your quadratic simultaneous equations.